35-year-old Taryn Brumfitt is making waves online for her series of post-baby body photos.
She learned to love her own body, and now she's on a mission to help others do the same.
She's bearing all to encourage women to accept and appreciate their bodies.
Taryn posted the pictures as part of her campaign to tackle negative body images.
She says that after the birth of her third child, she became obsessed with getting back to her pre-pregnancy body.
It was just this ordinary Sunday and I was hanging out with some girlfriends and we were talking about our bodies, and they were saying that they were struggling with their changing body and their ageing body. And as I was driving home, I was thinking, what can I do to help them? So later that night, I put a before and after photograph on Facebook. Well, traditional before and after photographs, there's a woman before, she's heavier than the after photograph and she's not very happy, and then she loses weight and then she's miraculously happy. So my before, I swapped them. I knew as soon as I posted it that it hit a note, because all the computers and the phones in the house were going ping, 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 ping. And my husband, Matt, who was in the lounge room, yells out, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Oh, nothing. Nothing's happening."
Yeah, the next minute, like, Taryn screamed out, "It's going viral." I'm like, "What do you mean it's going viral?" So I ran into the office, and I saw the picture. I'm like, "What have you done with that?" And she's like, "Oh, well, I put it on Facebook and now it's gone viral." I mean, like, what do you mean you put it on Facebook and what do you mean it's gone viral? So there was thousands of people liking it and sharing it and commenting it. I'm like, are you serious? Like, you put that, because essentially it was, Taryn in Starkers, essentially, tastefully Starkers, but Starkers nonetheless.
That before and after photograph, it went everywhere. It was headline news in Paris, in London, it was in Lebanon, it was in Canada, it was in the US, it was in Korea, it was everywhere. It broke people's brains to think that a woman could love her body afterwards. I mean, for me, living this really normal life, with my 3 kids, working as a photographer, and then having a Russian film crew rock up and spend 2 days with me, I mean, that's weird. Hi, I'm Taryn Brumfitt.
Привет, я Тарин Брамфит, и я хочу, чтобы и вы, русские женщины, делали как я.
To the outside world, it appeared like I was in a media whirlwind.
Were you shocked at the reaction that you got when you posted that before and after?
I was. But what no one saw was what was happening behind closed doors, and that was me on my email until 2 and 3 in the morning, just trying to read through the thousands of emails that I received from women and from men too. And their stories were quite heartbreaking. I have a 4-year-old daughter and I've never spun with her because I don't want to wear a pair of bathers. I've not been intimate with my husband for 3 years because I think I look disgusting. He tells me he loves me, but I just can't bring myself to be naked in front of him. I was sexually abused as a child and never told anyone. I've eaten as a way to numb the pain, but now I'm just fat. And no one knows my story, and everyone judges me as if I'm a lazy pig. And I'm not. I'm just trying to survive. So many people ask me the question, how did you learn to love your body and what did you do? And for me, I guess it wasn't always like that. I didn't always love my body. I grew up like most women, dieting, losing weight, gaining weight, thinking, oh, I wish I didn't have that cellulite, or I wish I was smaller here, whatever it was. But it was always a relatively healthy body image that I had. But after I had my first child, it all changed for me. Being pregnant was the best thing ever. I loved growing a baby. I loved everything about it.
23?
showering just a few hours afterwards, and the bump that I had grown to love for all that time, I looked down, I was like, what the f*** has happened here? It was just this jelly belly mess. Yeah, well, at first when I saw it, I thought, Darren, you've just given birth. Don't worry about it for now, and it'll get better. I expected it to get better. But I remember when Oliver was around 6 weeks old, I thought, okay, it's time to get my body back. Yeah, jumped on the court and played pretty hard. And then there was this one intercept that I took where I felt something warm running down my legs. I was like, oh my God. And I'd wet myself. It was devastating. Over the next 3 years, I had another 2 beautiful and healthy children. But in terms of my body, things went from bad to worse. I had nipples the size of dinner plates. During intimate moments, my breasts would leak. And then there was the time I pooed myself in front of Matt because my pelvic floor was shot. I ended up hating my body. I felt like my body was broken. Heading to the surgeon was a really obvious choice as a quick fix. And we booked in the surgery, and everything I'd been through, the hating and the loathing of my body, it was all going to be fixed. So exciting. And then I was watching Michaela playing, and I just had this moment of, oh, how am I going to have surgery? Like, what message will that send Michaela? What will that do for her? Michaela, hi. Jeez. I wanted her to embrace and love her body just as it was. And it actually broke my heart as a mother to think that my choice to change my body may set Michaela up to want to change her body too. And I look at her and I go, you're perfect, no matter what you look like. So I couldn't go ahead with the surgery. I couldn't do it. I wanted to make that choice for her, but I was still left in a body that I hated. From that moment, I hit rock bottom. I'm stuck in this hideous body for the rest of my life. I had a friend who was a personal trainer, and I said to her one day, I just can't get this thought out of my head. What does it feel like to have the perfect body? Would it change me? Would it make me happy? And she said, why don't you train and enter a bodybuilding competition? I was like, are you kidding me? And then before I knew it, 5 a.m, I was at the gym every morning, training. And I changed my whole diet and the way I lived. There was a lot of personal sacrifice, but there was a lot of sacrifice from Matt and the kids too. For 15 long weeks, I watched what I ate and I trained hard. And you know what? I made it. So standing there on stage, I expected to feel like I had arrived at the place that I had worked all of my life to get to. I had the perfect bikini body. It's what so many women think about and are driven to have. And in that moment, all I could think was, to have what I've got right now has taken too much sacrifice, too much time, too much energy, too much obsession, and it's just not worth it. I remember being backstage and listening to the conversations that other women were having. I wish I had more of this. I wish I had less of that. This bit's not great. It was shocking. I was like, gosh, you guys think this too? So I'm standing there in my moment to shine in my perfect body, and I'm not happy. And some of the women around me weren't happy either. And it got me thinking, how the heck is anyone else going to be happy with their body? This was a big revelation for me and a major turning point in my life. So the next day I got up and just started my life again. But with the flick of the switch inside my head, which was this body of mine, it's not an ornament, it's a vehicle. So I want to fuel it well and I want to move it and be healthy, but I want to do it on my terms. So running up a hill and getting to the top was great because of the endorphins and how great it feels to be in nature, and not so much about how many calories have I burnt. And food became just joyous again. I love food and I love good food. It was really freeing, it was really liberating. In fact, it was the best time of my life was after the competition, just being and moving and being happy and being balanced. By this stage, the before and after photo had been seen by over 100 million people. The response was overwhelming, and it became clear to me that this issue was much bigger than I ever realised. Can you give me a couple of words to describe your body?
Not perfect.
Wobbly, stumpy,
Very average.
short.
I don't like my thighs. I think my thighs are a bit big. Not nice to look at.
I don't like this body like now, really.
Wish I could cut this off or something.
I hate it. I feel disgusting.
Disgusting.
I feel disgusting.
That was heartbreaking and such a familiar story. Although I know what worked for me and how I made peace with my body, I don't have the answers for everyone. Not only have people who are struggling reached out to me, but some really unexpected and fascinating people have as well. So I'm heading out into the world on a 9-week journey to meet some of them.
Be safe.
I feel compelled to try and understand why so many people are hating their body and what we can do about it. First stop, Sydney. I've come to see Mia Friedman. She was the youngest editor of Cosmopolitan magazine and has been tackling the issue of body image for years.
I was always obsessed with magazines. I absolutely loved them because in the 70s and the 80s, that's the only kind of women's media there was, and that was the only kind of place that you could read about women's issues and see pictures of women outside of men's magazines, I guess. I knew what it felt like to get to the end of this magazine that I loved and feel like I wasn't enough. I wasn't tall enough, I wasn't skinny enough, I wasn't blonde enough, I wasn't anything enough. I just wasn't enough. And then when I became an editor myself, I really wanted to make some changes. So the first thing I did was get rid of diets. Then I started using models of different shapes, sizes and skin colours. The first thing I did was a lingerie fashion shoot with a model who was about a size 16. At that time, women's magazines did maybe one token big girl shoot per year, and it would be usually some girl dressed in frumpy cardigans. And I was the editor of Cosmo. I wanted to dress her in the Cosmo way. I wanted to make her look sexy in the same way that the girl on the cover would be dressed, in the same way that a size 8 girl would be dressed. My fashion editor was horrified. And then she kept coming to me and saying, I can't get any clothes. And I went, what, they don't make clothes for size 16s? I think that they do. And she said, no, they do. But clothing designers don't want their brand associated with anyone larger than a size 8. So I was so shocked by the hypocrisy of that they were happy to take the money of women of all sizes up to size 22 or even beyond, but they didn't want anyone to know. That was their dirty little secret. So I just said, we'll find someone who will send us clothes. And eventually she did it, and the photographer didn't want his name on the shoot. The makeup artist didn't want her name on the shoot. It was a real battle, and it continued to be a real battle throughout the next 7 years as I edited that magazine.
So Mia, why was bringing body diversity into your magazine so important?
You know, if you just look at women's magazines in the last 30, 40, 50 years, you could be forgiven for thinking that there's only one type of woman who exists in the world. And she is 6 foot tall, about 17 years old, usually blonde, blue-eyed, skin like plastic, and in fact she's an alien because she's created on a computer. And women consciously and subconsciously compare themselves. And if you're always comparing yourself to something that doesn't actually exist, how can you possibly feel good when you look in the mirror or when you look down at yourself? And you have to be hot and skinny all the time. When you're pregnant, you have to look hot. You just are only allowed to have a bit of a bump. The minute you give birth, you have to be a yummy mummy. You have to be a cougar. You have to be hot at every age, at every stage. That's a shocking burden and a shocking indictment of how our culture devalues women by just how we look.
We've become so used to seeing the one type of body. It's everywhere. It's all around. Buses, billboards, magazine covers. But as it turns out, even the girl in the magazine doesn't look like the girl in the magazine. It's no wonder so many women are dissatisfied with their bodies. Maybe we've forgotten what the average body looks like.
It took me a long time to break into the modelling industry. My size had a big thing to do with it because I was considered too big. I was a size 10, I'm currently a size 12, and agency after agency turned me down, and I was told that I would be considered a plus-size model. What they call plus-size models often get ridiculed by designers and other straight-size models for being curvier, and we're often looked at as second best and used as a gimmick almost. People outside the modelling industry that see models like myself and of bigger dress sizes all labelled as plus size sends a skewed body image perspective, because then a young girl will look at that woman that's the same size as her labelled as plus size, and that's sending the message that she's not slim enough. It's extremely damaging, especially with the mannequins they use in stores, which are impossibly tiny. Very few women are naturally that size. So for a woman walking to a store and seeing the clothing on the mannequin looking beautiful and she's wanting to wear it, and she goes and tries it on in the changing room and it doesn't hang on her properly, it doesn't flatter her figure, it's very damaging, it's very upsetting, it's frustrating. You end up thinking you're the problem. The woman trying the clothes on is not the problem, it's the clothing and the designers. I have seen so many women struggle with body image. When you hate your body, it eats away at every aspect of your life. It eats away at your work, it eats away at your schooling, it eats away at your family, your relationships. That is the main thought so many girls have is, I hate my body, and so they can't focus on anything. I went through depression and anxiety.